I'm feeling inspired. We're gonna do this. Yes. So today I wanted to do a video. I've been sitting on this video for a while, but it's time to put out in the world. It's interesting because I feel like in this spiritual journey that we just call life, in life, I'm picking up on wisdoms all throughout, but sometimes I'm uncomfortable with sharing them because it's just like, who am I to share them? I'm nobody's guru. I am just a woman living her life and trying her best every day. But I do realize like there are some things that it took me experience or, it took me living life to get there. And there are just some things that are lessons of mine that I'd like to share with other people. Not necessarily so other people don't have to learn lessons, because I truly believe you need to learn lessons for yourself. But if I could help someone along the way, it doesn't hurt. So I'm here to talk about shadow work. So today I want to do a video on shadow work and like understanding your shadow. Reason being, when I was first introduced to the concept of like shadow, probably like maybe like a little more than a year ago, the first time I heard about it, it was presented to me in a very woo-woo kind of way, and I feel like a lot of the time, like if you're someone like me, you grew up with Christian beliefs, Christian values, and you're open to understanding the spiritual aspects of that and just the spiritual side of yourself. Like as you're living this life, understanding different spiritual concepts is very important in my opinion. And that doesn't take away from your Christianity or your belief or your faith. It's just really understanding this life that we have to live before we get to the other side. So when I heard shadow work, I was like, seems kind of, what are we talking about here? Because a lot of spiritual content that's out there right now, I don't even like to use the term new age because like, that's a conversation for a whole nother video, but like a lot of this stuff that's out there that's very basic understanding that everyone needs to have about themselves and their spirit and their living on this planet is being wrapped up in stuff that like might scare people, to be completely honest. Like when I first heard about shadow work, I was like, what is this? What is shadow work and why? What are we talking about here? Like, then I went on my journey on my own terms to understand what it was, and I realized like this really isn't all that woo-woo. This really isn't all that like dark, if I could call it that. And I just wanted to share my perspective on shadow work as a person who is a believer, who does consider themselves a Christian, and also is committed to doing spiritual work. So let's get into that. What is shadow work? So I have notes. Let's talk about what shadow work is not. Shadow work is not casting spells. It is not witchcraft. It's not, like bringing yourself to a dark place so that you can finally come out to the light. It's not struggling. Shadow work is just sitting with yourself. Let's let that uncomfortable silence just last. Sitting with yourself. In order to practice shadow work, you don't need to do these wild and intense rituals. Like, it's not necessary. You just need to sit with yourself. That's really it. So in order to really practice shadow work, you need to work on your perception of yourself and paying attention to yourself. That's anything from your habits, your well-being, how you are in front of others, how you are when you're on your own, the thoughts you have, what you're excited about, what you feel ashamed about, and even what you're too embarrassed for anyone else to know about you. That is your shadow work. Think of it this way, right? Everything under the sun has a shadow. So think of the sun as perception, how you're being viewed, how you're being looked at. You could think of a tree. The tree is being perceived by the sun. And there's going to be the side of the tree that is lit up by the sun. And then there's going to be the side of the tree that's dark and a shadow that's cast from that. So now focusing on yourself, when you embody your whole self, that healed version of you, that version of you that is whole, it's going to have both a lit up side and a shadow. So that lit up side is your light side, and that shadow side is your dark side. Just know that for everything under the sun, everything that exists, there is a light and a dark. So for example, a woman can have a baby, and that could be the most exciting thing to ever happen to her in that moment. But at the same time, even with that light, there's still the dark side of grieving what she once was before she became a mother. There's a light and a dark. Anytime a team wins, there's a team that lost. A child might go to the doctor's office and get a lollipop, but the reason he's there is because he's sick. There's a light and a dark to every situation. And in certain situations, of course, there's going to be more light or more dark. The two are always going to exist together. Think of a light switch that you turn on in a room. You might turn on the light, and the darkness still exists. Even if you don't perceive it or see it, the darkness is still there. It's just that the light is on. And when you turn the light switch off, the room is now dark, but the light is still there. You just don't perceive it or see it. Dark and light must exist together. They are polar opposites, and but they're also complements to one another. The same way there's masculine and feminine, same way there's life and death. This essentially is what polarity is. We can't overvalue one side over the other. We cannot overvalue the light side or the dark side. And this is where we start to do our shadow work. When you're overvaluing the light side and trying to suppress the dark, you lack depth. And when you are stuck in the dark and you're not placing value on the light in life, you're stuck in obscurity. So you're not really living as your whole self, your healed self. So if you are somebody who, like myself, loves the light, I mean, the light is great, and you value the light, you also need to learn how to value the dark. And if you're someone who really struggles with seeing the light, you need to take part in activities that help you shift your perspective about the light in life, so that you're neither lacking depth nor living in obscurity. In life, we must see the wholeness and completeness and accept it fully in order to choose happiness. I wrote this down really well. We must see wholeness and completeness and accept it fully, then choose to be happy with the wholeness of life and ourselves from within. This is why happiness can't come from an external source. The external world is ever changing, and there's always going to be light, there's always going to be dark. Because light and dark are complements, and they're always going to be coupled together. Instead, we need to accept that this is life, and we choose to live our own life, choosing happiness with intention through the ups and downs. Not because it's light all the time, but because it's whole and it's complete. And that is the juiciness of life, the polarity in it all. So when you're getting ready to start shadow work, you don't need to take part in any crazy ritual. You don't need to learn how to be a witch. You don't need a magical guru or a psychic. You just need to be willing to sit down with the light you've experienced in life and the dark you've experienced in life. And you need to think about how many ways you might have suppressed the dark or put shame around the dark, how many different ways you've ignored the dark in order to feel like you can just feel some light. Sometimes we've done this simply out of survival. Sometimes we've done it because we just can't face something. But there needs to come a point in your life, honestly, there should be a point throughout your day each day, maybe when you're journaling, where you sit down with the dark and you're not suppressing it, you're giving it the chance to be processed so that you don't end up in a place where you don't know yourself or end up in a place where you feel like you're wearing a mask. And that's really what shadow work is all about. Sit with the things that you've experienced in your childhood. sit with the things that you experienced last week or yesterday, and let them pass through you. Fully feel the emotions of that, and honor it. There's a butterfly outside my window. Fully honor it, and you've done your shadow work right there. And the more you do this, the more you make it a practice for yourself, the easier it's going to be to process. There's going to come a point where all of a sudden you find yourself very easily processing the shadow, and you're also going to find yourself having a newfound appreciation for the light, because the light is not being manipulated into being a mask. It's just light. It's just life. And I myself, I think after hearing about shadow work for the first time, I want to say it was like a year ago, maybe a little less than that. When I first heard about it, it was just really like, okay, like shadow work. And now I realized what shadow work really is setting up myself to be able to choose happiness instead of making my happiness something that's based off of the external world. Also, really just finding a new level of self-love and appreciating my self-worth, not simply because of the light that I've done, or not shaming myself because of the dark I've done or experienced, but simply understanding that I'm a whole human being who's growing. I'm just a plant with complicated emotions. And just like that plant, when I stand in the perception of anyone or myself, I'm going to have my light and my dark, and that is okay because I'm a human being. So I hope that this is helpful for somebody. I wanted this to be short and quick, but yeah, if you're somebody who's out there looking into shadow work and how to do shadow work, don't make it complicated. Just start journaling and be prepared for crying and know that that is part of the shadow, and that's a good thing. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.